What up, party people? We back with another reflection on the Daily Vedantic. And if you haven't listened to the two recent episodes, you might get something out of listening to those first. I did one on shield to shield, and then I did one on the present absence. You'd still get a lot from this episode without listening to those two, but I will build on the 2 points from those two episodes. And that is around this concept of what gives. What gives? With this philosophy that tells us that desire is a contract we make with ourselves to be unhappy until we get what we want. It's a quote from non-dualist Naval Ravikant, who's a mentor here in California and a good friend, wise soul. And he had this beautiful quote that I mentioned in the last episode. Desire is a contract we make with ourselves to be unhappy until we get what we want. Desire is not a contract towards happiness. It's actually a contract of unhappiness until we can have a cessation of that desire. I mentioned that in the last episode. I also mentioned the one before that, shield to shield, that this Greek idea that in the Spartan approach to warfare, that you could lose your sword, your spear, you could lose your chariot, but you cannot lose your shield. You cannot lose your shield. Trained from 8 years on, you cannot lose your shield because your shield is not for you. In the array of soldiers in the front lines, your shield protects the person next to you. And then the shield to the person next to you is that which protects you. Your shield is not for you. It's the protection in the front line, this wall of death, and their strategic approach to war made them so damn formidable. It's wild to if you ever get a chance to read about Spartan warfare, what they were able to accomplish with small numbers. But this concept of shield to shield, your gifts, your resources, your skills, the Vedantic view, and this metaphor of our approach to life is your shield, your capacity, your skills. They're not yours. They are for those to your left or your right. They are for others. Our skills are not our own. And then you have this principle of to desire is to have a contract of unhappiness. This philosophy, much like Buddha's Four Noble Truths. The first one is all life is suffering. Second one, or all life is dissatisfactory. The second one is the cause of that dissatisfaction is desire. The cause of that suffering is desire, attachment. Vedanta, which is kind of one for one philosophically, it's like a mirror image of Buddhism. In fact, many Buddhists are called crypto-Vedantins. Many Vedantins are called crypto-Buddhists because of the philosophical similarities between the two. I think it's different paths, but very, very similar conclusions. This, and the Vedantic lens is that desire and attachment, you can use one synonymously with the other, is what keeps us from discovering, from clearly seeing and experiencing who we truly are. This idea, and as is said in Vedanta, that man minus desire is God. So when you add in the tiniest bit of desire, I want this thing, I want this relationship, I want this milestone, this sense of belonging, this validation, you sprinkle the tiniest bit and we lose our divinity in the most dramatic sense. We lose sense of who we are. But if we can overcome that, overcome our desire, rid ourselves, reach this state of desirelessness, that is our union with the divine. There's no greater goal within this philosophy, within perhaps every major tradition, than to achieve that union with the divine. But what gives? What do you do with these two principles? that the fruits of our actions, the purpose of our actions are not for us. And to want something is to create separation from us and the divine. I mentioned recently the definition of, the literal definition of, and translation of shaitan, the name for the devil in Islam. The literal translation is distance, separation. Desire is that separation. Satan in Christianity is the symbolic embodiment of desire. That separation from the divine. So what do we do? What do we do in a philosophy, in a world where there is nothing to get? Well, this philosophy would say, in a world where there is nothing to get, that the very act of wanting to get, to selfishly receive something, creates even more distance from ourselves, from our communities, from our potential, from our capacities. The very act of investing thought flow in desire creates distance from what we ultimately want. This philosophy says that what we ultimately want is peace and prosperity. Not one or the other, but both, and not the symbols of those things. You say you want 10 million bucks, but what you really want is prosperity. You say that you want everyone to love you, but what you really want is an absence of conflict, is peace. And in the next episode, I'll talk about the anatomy of peace and the anatomy of prosperity, how those break down, what those really are, how to get them logically. It's not even philosophy. The logical breakdown and anatomy of what makes up peace. It's not an absence of conflict, by the way. What makes up prosperity? I'll give you a teaser. It is not a lot of money. But what we want, according to this philosophy, so concisely, is peace and prosperity. But to want them, to pursue them selfishly, pushes them further and further away. So what gives? What do we do? What do we do with a philosophy that says tattvam asi? You are it. You are what is. We have just forgotten. Speaker included. We have fallen from this union with the divine through a veil of ignorance, perceiving ourselves to be these tiny little specks in this grand, massive universe, feeling apart from it all. When in reality, according to this ancient philosophy, you are like the dreamer in the dream. You're not just not apart from it all. You're projecting the whole thing. The person in the dream that thinks they're apart from the other people, the ground, the walls, the clothes. I had a dream two mornings ago. I was waking up to a dream where I could see, I was looking down at artificial turf in a backyard. I saw 1,000 little stems of this artificial turf with 1,000 shades of green. I wasn't apart from any of it. Every single tiny shimmer of every shade, of every artificial blade of that artificial turf was me. And this philosophy, so radically yet so simply, says, well, this is just an elevated version of that. You are paripurna, all full. You have it all. The very ignorance of thinking I need that one more thing to be complete is the ignorance, the investment of thought flow that makes you feel incomplete, separate from it all. But you are it. You are all full. What? Even if that were true, what do we do? What is there to do? The fruits of our actions are not for us. The mere act of investing in a thought flow of needing something more creates this sense of incompleteness. Well, it's quite simple. In a world where there is nothing to get, what this philosophy tells us, our action, our right to action is is that in a world where there's nothing to get, where you are all full, we have everything to give. In a world where there is nothing to get, we have everything to give. In a state where you cannot add to it, you have everything. I'm going off the deep end here to say that in a state of infinitude, of eternal infinitude that is ever expanding, that is what we say the universe is doing after all. In this elevated version of the dream. The Ashtavakra Gita talks about this elevated version of a dream merely lasting 3 to 5 days. That this entire existence, that we think like in the dream. You think like, oh, well, like 20 years ago I was doing this. It's just projecting out in the past in the same way that if you were in a dream and you said, well, of course I came into this room because I was in that room and that's what I was doing. And then I needed this thing in this room. It's total projection from the present. Saying and projecting out a past that obviously in the dream example never existed. In this elevated version of a dream example, the Ashtavakra Gita says that this is just an elevated version of a dream lasting 3 to 5 days. The same thing. And as crazy as that might seem, I say this every once in a while on the podcast, as crazy as that might seem, that you are a world creator, what this philosophy has said for 5,000 years, aka maybe 3 to 5 days. And you're hearing it for the 5th time, the 12th time during this experience. This eternal now that you're hearing over the last few days over and over and over again. This idea that you're a world creator, by God, it's not that radical of an idea. You do it every night that you dream. Every single night that you dream, have a vivid dream, you create an entire world. Every 24 hours, we're creating these worlds and then waking up and being like, well, my sense perceptions, they had nothing to do with reality 30 seconds ago. None of that was real. Oh, I can just wipe that clean. None of that was real, even though I thought, my heart's still racing from how much I thought that was real, but okay, my sense perceptions clearly have nothing to do with what's real with reality. But here, waking up, now that I'm sitting up in my bed, obviously this is all real because of, well, my sense perceptions. And this philosophy is saying, not only wake up in the absolute sense, but wake up to this thought process that we cannot be world creators when we do it every single night. So what is there to do in this world we have created? Well, this philosophy says so beautifully, so practically, so helpfully, to give. Give more and more and more away. There's a recent study that said that the year after, people made in this large-scale study made significant donations, significant gifts of generosity. The year after, they earned on average 40% more. And they couldn't figure out why. The economists roped in psychologists to try to figure out why. And they realized that there was a sense of power that the person gained. By giving away, they felt more powerful. They felt more responsible for their community. They felt more influential. They felt more abundance because of them giving away, versus people of the same stature that didn't make a gift. They grew about 7%. Their income grew 7%. They still improved, but they didn't make a jump of leaps and bounds of 40% like those that gave a significant portion away. Give and you shall receive, with a philosophy that says there is nothing to get. And this maps to Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, and a philosophy that tells us there is nothing to get. A common theme within all of these major traditions. what do we do? Well, with this philosophy, it gets explicit. In a world where there is nothing to get, you have everything to give. Maybe prosperity isn't 10 million bucks. Maybe prosperity is transcending any sense of needing anything. Maybe divinity doesn't look like an old guy with a beard controlling everything from a castle in the clouds. Maybe it looks like someone that can go singing their way to a cross, to show us the way, sacrificing everything that we hold dear right in front of our eyes, to show us that if we could only transcend everything that we hold dear, if we could go through a complete inner transformation of transcending all of our desires, giving it all away, we'd have everything we ever wanted. That is today's reflection on the Daily Vedantic.